Hi everyone and happy Tuesday. We are back to our Johanna Basford Planner page with all its floral beauty, hopefully. And right, where should we start? Well, our Arrtx pencils are here again. So I am going to grab, I think, I'm going to grab the True Green. It sort of stands on its own among this selection as sort of more bluey green colour, and there's some really teeny tiny leaves here and here that I'm going to do. Don't worry, I'm going to come in a little bit closer so you can actually see and show you where I'm going with these. So I am thinking these little teeny leaves. Okay, so I'm just going to do these and then do the stem that they're attached to as well. A little tricky to quite see what's going on with this tangle. I'm sure we'll get there. There we go. I hope everyone's feeling well today and happy, hopefully. Yeah, I think, over here, look, this bit I reckon. I'm just sort of, yeah, I just traced it back and checked. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit cold. As you can see, I've got my wrist warmers on today. Right now, this is the same day I actually recorded part 1, but I went off and got a coffee and I actually feel colder, but my heating is probably not on at the minute. I sort of set it on and off at different times of the day depending on who's here and who isn't, and when it's quietest in the house I tend to have it on the lowest, which is fine because no one else is here to moan and I can just stick it on if I get cold. But because no one's here, there's no bodies warming the house. People, you know, bodies. And there's no hot computers warming the air either, apart from mine, which isn't, just sitting there doing nothing. I was going to start an upload before I came through, but I forgot, so never mind. So anyway, I'm putting something on TikTok. I've started putting a few videos on TikTok, sort of one a day, sort of after I have put it up on YouTube. I prioritise YouTube just to see what's going to happen, really. I don't know. It's just something I'm playing with. Right, we have these leaves now. Should we do these? I don't really want to go too far away from that colour, so I'm just seeing what I've got, whether I've got anything that sort of even half matches. No. I think I'll have to use the grass green. I think it's the closest that I've got really to this sort of bluey green colour. I was having a chat with my son while I was... Is that the same leaf? Is that? No, I'm just going to do these ones. While I was having my coffee, I'm thinking I might go darker here and fade a bit towards there. Yeah, he said he was... his class was a bit annoying. He said, firstly, everyone was talking so loudly he couldn't hear the lecturer, because the lecturer was basically just standing there reading off the slides. He couldn't have been completely reading it though, because he said he had to correct him because he made a mistake. So unless the slides were wrong, which I suppose it might have been, because he was talking about Peel, P-E-E-L. It was an academic writing lecture, by the way, and Peel is a way of forming paragraphs, something they taught in school. Point, explain, evaluate, link, something like that. I was never taught it. I just trying to remember it from when they were taught it. Anyway, but the lecturer was saying it was a way of writing sentences, and so my son said I had to correct him. Tell him it was actually for paragraphs. So you could obviously hear him at that point, but I think once you've had to correct a lecturer because they're wrong, the class starts getting a bit impatient because they know they maybe not they've got a little respect for the person trying to teach them because it's wrong. But anyway, unfortunately, because he missed this class last week, it was really important that he stays for the whole session, I think. But anyway, he said also, the lecturer said, don't, what was it? It was talking about, yeah, he said, never use it's always say it is. Don't know why. And then he said, don't make definite statements. So if you're saying it is, how is that? I don't know. So my son was like, it's hilarious. Oh, well. And then he said, oh, make it into a sort of story to make it your academic writing less boring. My son was like, what? I was like, yeah. One day I went to the lab and it was sunny, so I thought I'd go out and sit on the grass with my cup of tea. That made me decide that I might study the worms. Do you imagine trying to submit that for a academic paper? Oh, well. I think I know what he sort of meant, but I think if you want to be... the sad thing is, in my experience anyway, if you want to have your academic paper published, not only does it have to be boring, not boring, it has to be written in a way that's hard to understand. Now this is, I'm talking specifically about psychology. You're expected to use really big words, and I just think it's wrong. I just think, why should academic papers be written in a way that laymen can't understand? So, you know, I think it's unfair, because there are a lot of things in our newspapers, for example. Now I'm going to get on my high horse. Bear with me. Which are based on academic studies. This is Lime Peel. So it might say, oh, 3 drinks a day is going to kill you aged 87 or something. You know. Okay. So you read the article and it says, Professor blah from blah did a study on 6 people and 3 of them found this and 3 of them this, and they concluded Y. You're like, okay, let's go and have a look at the actual academic study. So if you're lucky, it will be quoted in the article. Otherwise, you'll have to sort of go and scrape and search around for it a little bit. Now, if you read that academic study, you'll often find that it's full of words and that you cannot understand. Now, I think it's absolutely fair enough if I'm studying, let's say, a rare disease that's got a complicated name, then I have to use that complicated name for that disease because that's the correct way of referring to it. However, you don't have to use long words in academic sources. It really shouldn't be necessary, but certainly in my experience within the... I'm just seeing if I've got any more of these. Yes, there's this tiniest bit here within the area of psychology. If you don't use big words, this is chartreuse, it doesn't get published, and that's the end of it, because it doesn't sound like you're intelligent enough, is my thoughts. Now, I was told once, when I first started studying psychology, that the reason that psychologists had decided that they all needed to get PhDs and become doctors, because doctors got the best parking spaces in hospitals. And then I also got to feeling that often I think they were felt that they weren't as important as medical doctors, because they don't prescribe drugs. Psychologists, psychiatrists do, psychologists don't. And I feel that maybe that inferiority complex is what is leading them to feel they have to use really big long words, because I find that in other areas that I look at papers in, that isn't so much of a thing, which is quite fascinating to me. Now, I do remember when I did these, I said there's some more at the bottom, and I never did them. So now is the time. So I've got to try and remember. Apple green was our base. And even in some other subjects they do use longer words, or the academic papers are just not written in a way that is attractive to read. And what that means is that the media can read it and either completely misinterpreted it by error because they don't know how to read them themselves, or draw incorrect conclusions from it, or not question the conclusions that it has drawn. I'm pretty sure we use grass green for the tips, and nobody would be any the wiser. For example, they might be looking at a study where they only looked at a couple of cases of whatever it might be, and therefore you can't be absolutely sure that that is representative of the population as a whole. Or it might not be something that has been able to be repeated, or something like that. There are all sorts of things that you have to bear in mind when you're doing studies, you know. So I feel that a lot of the time it's very easy to quickly draw a conclusion from something excuse me, which might not be quite what it seems. So also, experts don't always agree. We're going to use this dark green for the stem and the starts of the leaves. So it might be that someone found something in their study, but it doesn't mean to say that someone else found it as well. They might have found something different, you know. We also have to always be so careful to remember that people are individuals. And if we're looking at studies that are done on people, then even if it's done on people that are almost the same as me, they aren't me. So if it says that people of my age, size, height, weight, race, location, gender, blah, everything completely matched to me, are more likely to, let's say, have their blood pressure go up if they eat too much salt, let's say, as an example. It's something I was looking at the other day. I didn't realise it was genetic. Did you know that? It might not affect me, because I just might not have that gene, even though I fit into that category. So it's worth remembering that we're all individuals, we're all slightly different. And even like when, you know, we're given a certain medication for something, or told to do a certain physiotherapy, exercise, or whatever it might be, here's the other one here, it doesn't mean it's going to work for us just because it's worked for lots of other people. Hopefully it will, but it's not for sure. And that's what makes things quite interesting, but also you have to be a little bit careful. So looking at statistics, you know, trying to put everyone into a little compartment doesn't always work, but fascinates me all the same. And actually my husband sent me something interesting yesterday. It was an email that he forwarded on to me, and it said that people who are more intellectual, I don't remember if they defined the word, but in this case it doesn't really matter too much. So people who've done more education, it said, have been in education longer. It's much harder to change their mind, this is grass green, on something than it is on people who aren't. And I was really interested in the psychology behind that. So I'm going, and I wonder if it's because you think, well, oh, I'm clever, I found that out myself. Are you trying to question my intelligence by telling me that I'm wrong? I wonder if it's that. And then if someone hasn't been so educated, not necessarily through their own choices, you know, they just may not have had the opportunity, they might have less confidence in their own ideas. And therefore, if someone questions their idea, they might think, oh, that person might be right. So it is very interesting. I also thought this through myself and thought that if I believe in something like I believe that man went to the moon, I can go online and I can find a lot of sources to back me up. However, if I believe the opposite, I can also find sources to back me up, which seem quite credible. So which is right? I think I know. But when it comes to something that's a little bit less, there's that leaf like the ones we've done already, held on. Lime peel. So if something that's a little bit less obvious or debated, you know, chartreuse, a little bit more debatable, should we say, less clear, less obvious, isn't definite, you know, I can still find sources of information that will show that I'm right / wrong. So, and it takes a lot more work to change my mind, even if you present someone with something that is almost completely proves that they're wrong. It doesn't mean you'll change their mind. It's absolutely fascinating, and I think that could come down to the fact that sometimes, for example, if I believe that a certain prime minister was the best ever, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get political, it doesn't matter. Now, that might mean that I am a fan of their political party as well, because I think they were the best prime minister. So if someone questions my belief in that, and they can prove, look, your prime minister can't have been the best because you say that they did X and the economy was the best under them, but have you considered that actually it wasn't by looking at this graph, for example? That doesn't just question my intelligence because I didn't find the graph, and my viewpoint because I thought they were good for this and now it seems they're not, but it also questions my whole belief system, because it means that I now have no basis to support that political party, and that might be something that I've invested a lot of time and energy into, and so it's almost questioning my whole belief system, my whole, you know, what I base my votes on, my arguments on, and everything else like that. So that means that you're actually questioning my whole belief system. And that means that I could get quite defensive. I don't want you to be right. This is spring green. And I will do everything I can to dig my heels in and argue that I am in the right. And can you see that? And it's quite interesting. And it said, this article, how we should sometimes take a little step back and just imagining we're looking at ourselves and our beliefs and everything from a distance and think about whether it makes sense. Because it was also talking about arguments, and it was saying, you know, we fall out with each other a lot in relationships, in life, in the office even, you know, people fall out. It's just what happens. But it is worth having a little think about how silly it actually looks sometimes. If you step away and think, you know, we've just spent half an hour arguing over whose turn it is to empty the bin or whatever, when, you know, it could have been done 10 times over by now. That sort of thing. You know, just having a little question to yourself about what you're actually thinking and doing. Right, these leaves cluster here. I think I'm going to do these 3 the same, and I'm going to do them similarly to this one, but I'm using the olive green. So it was interesting, I thought, except I'm going to make them darker at the top where these lines are. Now, often I think, if it annoys me that my husband hasn't taken the bin out, he does take the bins out, but he hasn't done something or other, it's usually not about that. It's usually that he's maybe not pulling his weight generally, or that he's done a few other things that have irked me, and that one was the final straw. Or I'm in a bad mood. I don't want to do it. I want someone to notice that I need some help, and I'm annoyed that he's not done it and not noticed that I need, and I haven't communicated. So it's never normally as simple as just, what it looks like on the surface, but it is worth thinking about, isn't it? It's like my niece is struggling at the moment in her student house. She's always been very bad at cleaning up the kitchen after she's finished in there. I'm just trying to decide what to do with this. I think I'm just going to do it lightly. When she lived at home, her mum and stepdad were always really annoyed that when she'd finished in the kitchen, it would look like a bomb hit it. Every surface was covered in pots and pans, or chopping boards, knives, bits and pieces, and the washing up hadn't been put away or done or whatever, and the surfaces were all mucky, and they would tell her, and she would get a bit annoyed about it because she's a teenager and who likes being told off by their parents. I got told off by my parent the other day. I didn't like it very much. Anyway, I'm sure it's justified, but it made me feel ooh. Anyway. But it was quite funny because it was on a Skype session, and me and my sister had been talking on Facebook Messenger and still had it open on my computer when I was Skyping, and my dad said this thing, I can't even remember what it was, and my sister typed to me, "Consider yourself told off!" exclamation mark. It's quite funny. Anyway, it lightened the moment for me anyway. So she's struggling because her flatmates are saying she isn't tidying up, but she's getting upset because she doesn't think they do either. And I can understand how it's much more difficult. For me, I've been used to having to keep things clean and tidy in a house for over sort of probably 30 years, I suppose, maybe slightly less. But for nearly 30 years, I've been one of the responsible people. I grew up being told that I had to do it as well. I sort of got used to it. Okay, so there are those, and we are going to do these in exactly the same way. And I've always absolutely just had to find a way of managing it. And you do. And now, because I work from home, and I've worked from home... Oh, my phone's ringing. Right, I am back. No idea what I was blabbing on about before the phone rang, but it was a very, very strange phone call. It was a text message to my landline, which is always a weird thing, but it does happen. And it was from WhatsApp. And my dad had WhatsApped me on my mobile phone about, only a few minutes before. And because I'm in here recording, I don't actually have my mobile phone in here. I have my tablet in here because it doesn't have noise on the notifications. So I have it in here so it's nice and quiet. And then I can keep an eye on my boys if they message me and things like that while I'm talking to you. And it's all good. But he needed to get hold of me urgently, in his opinion. That... because the WhatsApp to the landline said, "Please answer." I was like, oh my god, what's happened? He's the only person that WhatsApps me, really. So I had a look at my WhatsApp, and it was, "We're in Marks and Spencer's." I was like, okay, not urgent, okay. And trying to buy these towels, this towel that your son wanted for Christmas. And they don't have the exact one that you specified that he wanted. Will this other one do instead? Okay, so I start getting up the website and the phone rings again. And this time, my dad's actually phoning me on the landline, which is a sensible idea, to get an answer out of me. I'm like, I'm just going to have a look. So I said, he says, it's only £1 more. It's fine. I said, well, it's the size that's important. Oh, it's still a bath sheet. I'm like, yes, but it's the size as in, I'm just choosing my next colour. as it in centimetres that's important. So I said, oh, we'll have a look. So he looked at the label, going, it's this by this. I was like, yeah, but this is lime peel, but I need to know whether it's the same size as the one he wanted, which you couldn't find. But fortunately, while they were scrabbling around looking, I had a look on the website, and I'm just going to do these the same, so a little bit darker here and lighter to the tip. So I had a look on the website and they were exactly the same size, so I was like, yeah, it's fine. You can't see what I'm doing. Oh, I'm so sorry. So yes, it was exactly the same. So yes, I did this one and this one, this one, this one, so darker here. So thankfully I got that resolved. But yeah, I was like, why could you not have gone home and phoned me from there instead of paying to phone me on a mobile phone, which is very expensive? You need to have actually got it done right now, today. But yeah, they could have just, you know, rung me for free, because they get free calls on their landline, and asked me, and done it another day. It's not, I mean, remember, yesterday I told you what date it was recording this video. It is October the 15th, so it isn't that urgent really. Even if it was the day it is that this video is going out, which is November the 19th, still not really that urgent, is it? Now I'm pondering here, we've got these little leaves on these plants here. I think we'll do that next. Yeah, I think this colour is rather nice. This is the grass green. I think I'm going to ignore the outline and just fade it off like that, quite gently. And here. Yeah, I also took a few minutes to have a quick chat with my sister. I'm going to do the one over here and say, tell her that my son was struggling in his class because the teacher was just reading and everyone was talking. And she said, I never had that ever happen in any of my classes. And I'm thinking, you're lucky I did. This is apple green. It's a quite different colour. I think when we put it on top of this, it will just mute down that brightness and mix well. We'll do the same with these two. I'm going to sharpen it though. We used to have this one particular lecturer, and she was so unconfident, and most people didn't even bother turning up, to be honest, and those that did would natter through her class. And what she talked about, she didn't manage to explain it in a very exciting way, poor thing. I feel sorry for her because I've lectured a class and had people talk through it as well, so I know how horrible it is. Anyway, I think I procrastinated colouring the orchids for long enough. I'm not going to think about what colour an orchid should be. I'm just going to grab a colour that we haven't done on this page yet and colour them that colour. So I hope that's okay with everybody, because I find orchids very daunting to colour and I just want to have fun with it. So I'm going to start with the jade blue, and I'm going to do the centre and this edge. But this lecturer once earned so much respect from us because she brought along a guest speaker to a class. I've told this story before, and he was a very famous psychologist who had written a book, who was the top expert in his field, working at Bristol University. And she worked at Bristol too, but she used to come and guest lecture at our university. And she brought him along. He's passed away now. I actually saw his obituary in the main news. He was that famous. and interestingly said his partner and carer, and it was her, my lecturer, had made a statement saying he'd be greatly missed and blah, you know, this sort of thing. It was very disrespectful, wasn't it? Greatly missed and blah. I can't remember what she said. But he was of quite an age. And Richard Gregory, his name was, for anyone who wants to know and studies psychology or whatever and is interested. But he came and spoke to us in our class, and he was the most parrot green, entertaining and interesting lecturer that I'd had for a long time. And it was absolutely fascinating to hear him speak on the subject that he was such a big expert in. He went right off syllabus. I mean, obviously he wasn't one of our key lecturers. He was speaking about perception, which was his field, which was what the module was about. But he just, you know, went a bit rogue and talked about all sorts of fascinating things that I can't remember now because it was far too long ago to try and calculate. I haven't got enough fingers and toes. And we were so honoured, and so many people missed the class because they bunked off her lessons because they couldn't bear it. And we were treated to this delight, and it was a sort of unmissable experience that was just amazing. And it just shows, doesn't it? I was reading a fascinating book at the moment about anxiety, and it was talking about how as we get older we have more and more experiences like aqua, and worry more and more about the consequences of doing things. This isn't quite what the book's saying, but this is sort of my interpretation of it. So if we've done something and we had a bad experience in it, for example, my husband has had a panic attack the last 2 times we've been shopping in big Tesco. It's a big supermarket. So now when he goes to big Tesco, he expects to have a panic attack, and so he gets those panicky feelings before he's even stepped in the door. And that happens to us all a lot. And the book was explaining how this is a technique by our brain, here we go, to help us survive. In that if we right, I am back after being on the telephone to a scam caller. I did manage to keep him on the phone for 8 minutes, which I was quite impressed with, because quite often I scare them off quite quickly. But I just realised this bit needs doing. Which of the colours was it? I think it was probably the parrot green. It was a new type of call that I've never had before. So just to let you know, in case you get one, basically he said he was calling from Sky Assured Services, which he said was no way at all linked to Sky Television, which is a satellite TV company here in the UK. I'm now going to use this cloud blue on the remaining petals. And he said that my television had a maintenance service on it, like an insurance on it, and that it was, and I was paying £11.99 a month for it, which I'm not, and that it was due for renewal, and that he wanted to renew it for me. I'm trying to decide what colour to do these. I think I might just use this one. And so I assume that he was going to try to take my bank details, but I kept him on the phone a long time, asking him lots of questions like, well, what's my address if you know my phone number? I firstly said, well, what bank is the payment coming out of? You know, what's the, what bank? He said, well, I'm not allowed to give you that information. I said, but you've got my phone number. He said, oh, I've not got, it's all starred out. He said, I haven't got it. And I said, but surely, you know, the name of the bank, that doesn't have to be hidden. But he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't budge on that one. So I then asked him where he was based, and he said, in South London. And I said, what part of South London? It took him quite a long time to come up with the Dagenham as the answer. So, yeah. And he then said, oh, you think I'm scamming you? And I said, funny that. Right, so we have this bit of foliage here, and I think the only colour that I've got that's going to sort of work with all these blues is the dark green. I'm going to use that. I think these are part of this rather than part of this. I'm going to colour it as if it is like that, and then I'm just going to fade them off towards the bottom. So yes, I've not had one like that before. So I've had all the usual I'm calling from Microsoft or from BT, renewing your internet's getting slow on your computer and all that one, where they try and put a virus on your computer. Had those all before, but this was a new one on me. I also get loads about loft insulation and solar panels. And changing my boiler for a new energy efficient one. My sister got done by one of those, unfortunately. Well, she got told there was a government scheme that would pay for her to have some ventilation put into her kitchen to stop mould or something. And it's true, there was one. And so she had the thing put in, but it was rubbish and she had to have it taken out again. But luckily the company did it for free, but it took some wrangling. Also the loft insulation, no, the cavity wall insulation ones, my parents had their cavity wall insulation done for free, and their loft insulation, and they've now got more damp in their house than they did before. My sister's got the same thing, where her loft insulation wasn't put all the way to the edge of the loft because the people putting it in said you needed a sort of air gap. They've got mould underneath those areas, so it's not good. We're lucky because we don't have either loft insulation anymore because it's a bedroom, or cavity wall insulation, because we looked into it a lot and we were never able to have it, and I'm really pleased. Right, so we've still got quite a few different leaves to do. We've got these. I quite fancy doing these with the sort of outline in one colour and then the internal bit in another. So I'm going to outline in a fairly dark colour, not the darkest colour though. I think I'm going to use the grass green for the outline. And really sort of plaster it on, make it nice and bright. There's a bit of a problem with the fact that my phone is now rung 3 times during this video. I've got absolutely no clue how long I've been recording for, how long this video has been. So it's a bit tricky. I think this colour is the same as this one, isn't it? Oh well. I'm putting it on thicker, it looks a little bit different. My son's getting exasperated in his lecture. He says his lecturer just had to Google something. I'm like, well, I know, we don't all know it all. And he's like, well, it's called preparing for the lecture. I suppose lecturers do get paid an awful lot of money. I know when I did it, I was very, very well paid, and I was only doing it temporarily, and I don't think I was being paid anything like the amount that the proper full-time lecturers were being paid. So yeah, he's getting exasperated. He always does in this particular class. Now I don't know whether to fill, I think I will fill these in as well. So yeah, I can see his point, but him getting exasperated is only going to make himself feel bad. But there we go. There. Now I am going to use the spring green, I think, if I can find it. There it is. Inside these. There it is. So I think I might like that one, do a little bit more intense on the edge and a bit less towards the middle, but it doesn't show up that well because this is quite a pale colour. I think it works quite well on these leaves though, these two colours together, which is good. But what I think I might do, I'm trying to decide whether to do more or not. I'm very unsure as to how long I've been doing this. Perhaps I should be writing it down, but don't know. I think I might make this the last bit. I'm thinking, where did I get to last time? Had I even done any green last time? I'm looking at what we've got left as well. We've got a set of leaves, these bird of paradise flowers, which I might do in a slightly different way. Got all the butterflies left. Yeah, I've got 3 and those 2. It's a lot of butterflies. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for it and hope that this is a long enough video. I'm sure it is. There we go. So I'm going to leave that there for now and come back and finish it off tomorrow. I think there is a lot on here anyway still to do. So I think I will leave it and come back tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And yes, do watch out for all these horrible telephone scams. Ugh, it just makes me cross. But I just try and keep them on the phone so that they can prevent them scamming as many people as possible. But thank you for watching. Have a super day and happy colouring.